welcome to INKPULP Instruction, Episode 3. On this episode, we are joined by Jim Mahfood. Jim is an artist I met a long time ago. He had broken into the industry, and I was just starting to break in. And he won't remember this, but it had an impact on me. He was at the Oni booth selling his mini comics, which at the time were called 40-ounce comics. And he was working on, I believe, Clerks at the time. And he had already done a Generation X thing from Marvel, I believe, if memory serves. Anyways, what I saw in Jim's work at the time really hit home with me because it was its influences, its flavor, its funk, if you will, were pulling from the same sources of me at the time. We both came from a deep love of counterculture, hip-hop, psychedelia, punk rock, and all sorts of stuff. But with the dominant flavor was certainly some hip-hop and psychedelia. And that at the time is exactly what I was really doing. I went on from there to go to art school, and I'm not going to say I left those influences. They've always been in my work, but I quieted them and became a very academic artist, and after school quieted the academic side of myself and brought everything back. But watching Jim evolve over the years has been inspiring, has been incredible, amazing. He is one of the most effortless artists I know, I've seen. One of the he just breathes. It's like breathing for him. It's constant. He's constantly outputting, and it just flows from him like water. And I'm sure if you ask him, he would say he struggles with it, like we all do, but that's not the appearance I see. And it doesn't prevent him. It doesn't ever stop him. I know artists say they get blocked, or artists say, I got to build up my mind to get down and get busy on this piece. Jim just hits it, and he's developed this skill. He is also pure, just an absolutely pure artist. And what I mean by that is there's no forced style or artifice to what he does, and he's absolutely, completely unique. And he's just a beast, a monster artist, and an inspiring one to know. So I definitely wanted to get him on INKPULP Instruction because A, he's a friend, and B, I think there's something really completely unique about what he does. That's the word. It's the only one I can think of. It just feels right. But with a lot of these, there's a lot of very academic instruction and technique. With Jim, there's a lot more expressionism in the work. So I thought if I could capture that, there would be some incredibly invaluable lessons for you, the student, and for me as I was doing it. And I wasn't wrong. I learned a lot from doing this with Jim, and I hope it gets more into the ethereal aspect of what being an artist is and how to be an artist. Jim is also a absolute hustle machine, and he works tirelessly. So while his work is very playful, there's a lot of hard work being put into it. So there's a lot of great information in this from Jim, and this will be one of the most unique, again that word, it just keeps coming back, one of the most unique episodes we filmed, because Jim's one of the most unique artists out there. So thank you for getting involved with INKPULP Instruction. Thank you for your purchase of this here video. Enjoy and get your learn on. Peace. we got a lot of tools. And I know you have a lot you use, but there's probably a lot here you use a little bit, and some you use a lot more, I'm guessing. So let's start with pencils, because that's where drawings start. These are your pencils of choice?
Yes.
All right, so what do we got here?
This is, this is my main go-to. It's Graph Gear 500, 0.7 HB lead.
Okay.
Never fails, especially good for, comics and just technical drawing, which I don't really do technical drawing, but consistency. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I always know what line is going to come down from this.
Right.
And it's just predictable, and
you like a good middle of the road graphite, not too hard, not too soft.
Yeah.
All right.
Very functional. These are more of like arty pencils. They just look good. They feel good.
They're very soft, very dark.
Yeah.
Don't erase completely clean.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes if I'm just drawing straight in pencil in my sketchbook, these are the guys to work with. You know.
And they do offer a wide range of value and pressure, and they're buttery, creamy pencils.
Yeah.
I love the black wings.
If you want to draw in pencil and have fun, get those and have a good time with them.
I agree. All right, so what about erasers?
The traditional kneaded eraser, and I sometimes use that mono guy, but this is sort of just like my go-to.
So mainly kneaded eraser.
Yeah.
Do you, when you use a kneaded eraser, it's mainly to erase, not to lift?
I'm doing both.
Okay.
And I'm trying not to obviously scrub the drawing, because I want that ink to maintain as much as possible. But I have light pencils underneath most of my work, so it needs to come up.
Okay. Okay. So then your primary tool for inking is the parallel pen. All right, so you've got two of the same size?
Yeah, these are kind of my two go-tos, and what I do is I marked this one because this one has the non-waterproof ink that comes with the pen, and this has waterproof ink in it, which is this black India ink, universal, that you use in rapidographs. And the reason for that is this pen I use pretty much for everything, including all my mixed media stuff, because you can paint on top of it and it will not bleed, it will not smear.
Okay.
This with the non-waterproof ink is more for just straight black line sketchbook drawing, and it's super easy to manipulate this and smear it and smudge it because it's so sensitive to moisture. Just the touch of your finger on it, you can get cool shading and tones with it.
And you want that when you're sketching and playing around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the rapidograph for here?
This is for just super fine detail work. Okay. So I'm using that in conjunction with this, and sometimes the Micron, I'll do a 0.5 and a 0.3 also for detail work.
Okay. But you prefer the ink from the rapidograph because it's that real India ink.
I do.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's that jet black look that I like.
Right. Okay, and you've got actually there's another parallel pen. Let's show the tip of this.
Oh yeah.
Because this is such a unique, strange tool for inking.
It's just you're basically drawing with a square metal chisel.
Right.
And then this part, unscrews, and you have your sort of rapidograph style cartridge that you can refill.
Okay.
This is a, what size is this? This is 3.8, and then I have this blue one, which is larger. It's a 6.0, and this one I actually use for red inking.
Oh.
So, if I want to have fun and just do something different, I have a red option as well. This red ink is the ink made by Pilot Parallel, so this is not waterproof.
Okay.
So, but you can get that smudging with it.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. What about the brush pen there?
This I love for like super loose drawing and sketchbook drawing. I'll usually do the line work with the Parallel pen and then go in and just add the blacks and the shadow with this. And this also has like a real nice ability if you're laying in like a black for smearing and
and that is an actual synthetic brush. It's not a single fiber like those brush markers people are using.
Right.
Okay.
And I mean, these are just kind of a classic go-to at this point, with just ink drawing in general.
For sure. All right, so we talked about whiteout. You use. Are you like Bic specific with your whiteout, or you just whatever? No, it's just what was available in the store, because I'm not precious about which whiteout pen I use. They basically all do the same thing. Right.
The point for me with the whiteout is I like the white paint that comes out of them. I think it's the most stark, thick, white, pure white.
Sure.
I have some of the proof white,
right?
And this stuff is good, but I just feel like the whiteout is so easy to use,
right?
And it's just so readily available. Like, just why not just use it?
Sure.
Yeah.
And what about the white pencil?
Yeah, I love Prismacolor. I have a set of these guys I'll use for adding just color accents to mixed media pieces.
Okay.
But this one, the white in particular, I like to go into black and kind of do textural kind of things. You can get like, mark making and.
Okay. And then the inks over there. These inks are primarily for splatter and effect like that?
Yeah. The matte black is what I use to fill in my big black areas on mixed media and comic book pages as well. This is a real nice, consistent, just straight up flat black.
Right.
Matte. I don't want to shine.
Okay.
So
right.
This will get you to what you need. And then I really dig the calligraphy colored inks as well. I use the white and the red a lot. This white is my go-to for white splatter and ink spritzing.
Okay.
And you're just dipping the toothbrush in these, and going to town.
Are you buying like new toothbrushes for for using with art, or are you just keeping ones that you kill in the bathroom?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, if I'm at the store and I see like a cheap 3-pack of smaller, especially like kid-sized toothbrushes, I generally will buy those because I kind of like the smaller bristle.
Right.
But for me, almost any style of toothbrush will work.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then looking around, those are watercolors, the Van Goghs?
Yeah. These are a good brand. I'm using these in conjunction sometimes with the gouache.
Right. Well, let's talk about the watercolors first. What is it about that brand of watercolor you like?
For some reason, I've used different brands, but the colors that come out of this and the consistency of it is just what I'm drawn to.
Okay.
And these are, like with all watercolor, these are so easy to just reignite once they're on your palette.
Right.
And I've just always had good luck with these. And I also use the Van Gogh oil stick for highlights and lighting effect as well. Okay. And these lay down a real nice soft
that's
white.
Really buttery.
Yeah, real oil. I dig this, and you can do. My finger might be dirty, but you can get the kind of like textural, Sam Keithy. Real. If you really want to get in there and add some grit and flavor, these in conjunction with the white ink splattering will get you to where you need to go.
Okay.
And
then so you and I both have a love for this acrylic gouache because it's matte, it's opaque, but it's also, unlike normal gouache, it's waterproof when it dries.
Yes.
Whereas normal gouache is like watercolor that is still activated.
Yeah. This to me, man, is almost like using acrylic.
Yeah,
wouldn't you agree? It's
just matte and opaque, whereas acrylic is glossy and semi-transparent.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
But that brand, and also just like the feeling of it and the packaging, it's just a really nice product.
And the Holbein pigments are the best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and going back to white, I also do sometimes use the Molotov.
Right. I wanted to talk about Molotov markers because you don't just use the white. You've got.
I have black, from them as well. My only complaint about the white of this particularly, the tips on those are very sensitive and gunk up very easily. So I feel like there's times where I can only use one of these on like 1 or 2 pieces, and then it's dead, it's gone.
Yeah, I think the Posca tips are better.
Yeah, so this is sort of an expensive investment for, I don't want to say little return, but you have to know that these are not the most reliable.
Right.
But if you want to get super fine white detail, this is kind of a go-to.
It's a very opaque, nice white ink in there. I agree. Well, let's keep talking about the markers, because you've got the paint markers. You've got the Montana.
That's a great.
The big fatty.
That's a great black marker for just spreading joy. You know.
Yeah. And this is this is kind of where you're bringing in your graffiti roots into stuff, because these markers are just tailor-made for them.
Yeah, and these two, like when they're slightly dry, they can give you a nice faded mark.
That's cool.
Like that, and then you can kind of also go in and like manipulate that a little bit.
Right, and those are acrylic, so when they dry, they're dry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this one is water-based. There's also an oil-based version of this.
Oh, really?
That's like super permanent.
Right.
You know.
Oh, I didn't know. So Montana makes the oil base?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think of what else. And just sometimes I'll use red Sharpies for like signing comics when I'm shipping stuff out to people, or just drawing on stuff for people, just because it stands out.
Yeah,
so I have
you
these.
have a thing with red. Is it because it just jumps out?
Yeah.
It's kind of bold.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it looks good,
All right. And when it comes to brushes, you're just like whatever's clever.
Yeah, because it's so strange, man. Like I don't really ink line work with brush.
Right.
I'm basically a pen-driven inker.
Right.
And I learned traditionally in college how to ink comics with the Winsor Newton Series 7, number 0, or number 1.
Right.
I never got to the number 2 because I was inking Huddleston and his work was very detailed.
Right.
But I learned how to manipulate that brush.
Right.
And then I just became a straight up pen inker.
Yeah.
So whatever suits your interest, I occasionally, we talked about this earlier, but I occasionally use some of the grayscale Copics just for minor accents on pieces, but I'm never coloring or filling in.
I was surprised to see that. I didn't even know you used them. And then obviously the X-Acto is a part of your process too when it comes to trimming the Zipatone.
Yeah, and Zipatone can be considered a material and a supply that I use.
And the paper we talked about. So and then the manila paper you use.
Yeah.
Tell the story. So there was a manila paper you liked, and then it just vanished.
Made by Canson. I would buy it. I have been buying this from Dick Blick for years. It's basically a cardstock.
Right.
Went to their website earlier this year. They discontinued it, and I called them, and they said it's officially been discontinued.
So you panicked.
I panicked, and then I went on Amazon, and I literally ordered 5 different brands of this type of colored paper, and I'm still experimenting with which one I like the best. This one that I did the piece on today, that has a bit of this almost like woven texture into it.
This is, I'm pretty sure, called a canvas paper.
Yeah, this works really well, and I like it. I would have to go back in my other studio and find the name of it. I don't know the brand, but
that's fine.
It's just weird though. I'm sure you've had this in your life where you find a material and then it is no longer available, and then it's like, what do you do?
Right, but it's funny coming from you where everything is so like about letting go of control, but with your control manifests itself in I need my tools because with them I can let go of control.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
this right now.
What did you just light box that?
Yeah, from this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I drew this from a photo, but I couldn't find the photo reference, so I don't even.
We couldn't use it anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start by talking about what, like, your approach to inking this, or maybe back up and talk about your approach to creating the composition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I drew this originally from a photo, just this pose, and added the skull and the, extra stuff going on here.
Let's talk about the extra stuff going on, because that's kind of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll find a figure model, but then you just riff around it.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah, like I'll usually find photo reference or a photo that will spark an idea. Like, oh, that figure, that pose looks good. I can draw that in my style and then add design elements around it to make it an exciting image. Because just her alone is just something, but then you put that circle behind as a graphic image, you add the skull, you get, the arrows going this way and then the bones going this way, create just a nice composition overall of design that makes it obviously more exciting than just a attractive female form.
Which is pretty exciting.
That's exciting itself.
Okay. Well, I guess what I want to ask you is when you're choosing the secondary and tertiary subject matter, like the arrows, for example, is that chosen with any sort of narrative intent, or is that just improv and it's what felt right?
It feels right, but at the same time, like with the horned skull and stuff, this is obviously a badass girl that might be some sort of warrior, or it's an aggressive kind of edgy statement of this girl is not to be messed with, sort of deal.
So there's definite intent.
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
subject matter. All right.
So I mean, instead of this being like flowers or something as a design element, it's like no, it's arrows to indicate more of an aggressive.
And that's what the bones are about.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right.
So,
cool.
And I always like the idea of like an attractive female figure that's curvy and juxtaposed with the subject matter of something more sinister and brutal.
Yeah.
It's just a nice melding of like sexy and sinister.
Yeah,
you know?
I like have the same sort of interest, like Beauty and the Beast type stuff, where you draw a really cute, curvy female, but then a monster. Yeah,
I think
get that.
That also comes from just being a child of the 80s and like having heavy metal magazine.
I was just about to ask that, like, and how much of that is like heavy metal and Frank Frazetta and
for sure.
Grew up on.
For sure, I think that's ingrained.
And Frank Miller. I mean, he ran with that too.
Yeah, we always talk about Frank.
Yeah, we do.
Both Franks.
It all comes back to
both Franks.
The two Franks.
And I like that idea of the mixing of the, like you said, like sweet and sinister or sensual and sinister.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't remember if you and I were talking last week about contrast. Like, I just find that more and more all I'm doing is trying to create contrast, whether it's between line values or values themselves or subject matter. Art is just all about contrast.
Yeah. And the balance of it all.
Right.
Is interesting. So I did this drawing small, and then I blew it up on a copy machine, and then I transferred it to a textured colored paper because I like having something other than white as my base.
Right. And Manila's like your thing.
Yeah.
Like,
it's become my thing in the last couple of years.
There's no one else working on Manila paper consistently.
Right. And I like.
And is that part of why you choose Manila, because it helps like your work be more singular?
In a way, but I love having white and black as things I can add to this.
Right, but why not like more commonly you'd see a tan or a gray?
Oh, that's a good question. I like the way that the white and then the colors, when I add paint to this, I like that the way that they pop off of the
So it's an artistic decision.
Creamish manila, particularly.
It's not a branding thing. It's an artistic decision.
I think with gray paper, the color is more unpredictable of like what's going to happen when you put it on top of gray.
Sure.
Where with this, it's like I know exactly what it's going to be. And I have like, you can see my little test piece of paper over here.
Oh, okay.
To where when I'm mixing colors and stuff, I can just, go over here.
Right. And it's a lighter value. Like the grays and the tans tend to be mid to darker.
Yeah.
This is like a 30%.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So talk to me about what you're planning with your inks.
This is just a foundation, and then I'm going to go in and do more of the drawing, and my style comes from the actual inking process.
Yeah, all you have to say is, Sean, you don't ask a jazz musician what they're going to play next, right?
Right.
All right.
It's good. I'm that brilliant. I'm that.
Exactly. You're riffing. It comes from the soul.
Right.
All right, so let's do it. So, I mentioned the theory of when to use thins and thicks with your line variation. So I'm just going to demonstrate very quick on a very simple drawing of a profile of a face. And normally when I ink this way is I do a first pass to get the initial line, the dead weight in, and then I'll build. But you're going to see me, and I'm hoping this is something that's visible. But I am playing with pressure as I go in. So as I come into the drawing, I kind of lean in as I lay down, and then I put my pressure in. And as I know I'm coming to a thin point, I put my pressure up. Now, when you break a line, this is something you have to master in inking, is how to break a line to stop inking, because it's getting to a point where you've pulled it for a while and you can go no further. And you got to learn how to pick up right where that line went off and make it as seamless as possible. But when you're working this way with microns and building the thicknesses, you have some room for error, because when you build a thickness in, you can sort of build that bump out. So what I'm going to do now is kind of lean in as I come close to that line and then pull it out. So it's pretty seamless. I can see... my eyes are so in tune with my inking, I can see a little bit of a small gap there. I doubt you can even see that. But I'll fix that in the thickness. So I'm just doing a pass over here. Okay. And you will become familiar with, if you're new to this, the death grip. And the death grip is how you will hold your tool for a while, and your hand will hurt, and you'll get pains, and then it'll go away as you get confident and get comfortable. So there's just kind of an initial dead weight pass on it. So let's say we have light coming down onto this form from that direction. That's going to let me know where I need to do my shadow. So this forehead area here is kind of hitting the light. So I know as I tuck away from the light, I'm going to get thicker. And I'm going to exaggerate the thicknesses a bit so that you can see. I mean, subtlety is how you probably want to work in the long run. But for instructional purposes, I think exaggerating makes the point really well. So as I come back around this curve, I am tapering into the other line and lifting it up just like we created that initial tapered line, like that. So there you would have some shadow. So now as we're coming down the bridge of the nose into the point that really hits the light, I'm going to build it slightly so that this region is where the highlight would be. And you can even toy with letting a line break entirely so that a highlight would just be seen as an absence of line. And maybe I'll go with some white when we're done to give you that sensation. So now as we come around the bottom of the nose, once again, we're building that shadow. And I just want to get in there. Okay, good. Now we're dealing with the lip, so it's the same sort of thing. The corner of that lip will catch the highlight, and then as we tuck away from the light on the underside of the upper lip, we'll go into shadow again. The bottom lip catching a little bit of light, but as we taper away from it on the underside of that form, we'll get dark again. And I'm going to smooth the transition here a little bit. What you don't want to do and what you want to avoid is fast stops. Areas where the thick just stops and then it's thin. You need a smooth transition. Even if it's a hard corner like this, there should be some element of transition. As we come into the top part of the chin, light is going to hit it. But of course, and here's that little bump from before, so I'm going to start to build that line down here. And what we have is a shadowed form on the underside of the chin. Let me just smooth that transition a little bit. And boom. Now, quick note, you want to use good paper, because all that building and stroking of the pen against the surface of the paper, if it's crummy paper, it will start to degenerate the paper and shred it up and pill it up a bit. So I really like to use really high quality paper. I'm using Strathmore 500 series Bristol board, and this is a semi-smooth surface. With my typical brushwork, I use a very rough surface of the same type of board. But like I said, we'll cover that stuff in my next video on rendering and my true technique. This is a very beginner video. So that's essentially what a line with varied weight is and how to use it. So you can see it just takes practice of building. Let's now move. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. We'll talk about tools after this.
Yeah, for this piece, I usually start off with this tool.
And that's your parallel pen.
Yeah. And this one pen kind of gives me most of the lines that I'm looking for in what I'm drawing.
So do you start by just knocking out your like contour lines before you start adding blacks and textures and patterns?
It depends. It depends on the piece. Sometimes I will do contrast and stuff as I'm working, just to like help define shape. So like this right here, I'm kind of.
I gotcha.
Okay, that's gonna be her face.
I mean, for me, like you just did something I'm terrified to do, which is not to pencil in the face.
Yeah, I didn't even add that yet. Like that's one of those things of, oh, I'll just figure that out in the inking phase,
so,
I guess.
The goal of your pencils is to put down as little as possible, but giving you what you need.
Yeah, but again, it sometimes depends on the piece, because like when I'm penciling comics, I do tend to do more full-blown, just full pencils.
Okay.
Because I need to know that it's all going to work out as a whole. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So, yeah, man, it's sometimes it's difficult for me to talk about certain things because every piece sort of has its own approach.
Right. Is that like listening to the piece as you're doing it, like Michelangelo finding the sculpture and like the sculpture's in the stone,
right? Yeah,
waiting to be revealed.
Yeah, I mean I try and explain, is there a method to all this madness? But sometimes for me it's like, sometimes I'm just winging it on the pending.
Do you have a compositional plan for your spot blacks, or do you just look and see where it feels like it needs it?
I have both, but on this, like as I'm doing it, I sort of already know, like, well, her shirt is going to be black.
Right.
So in order to have the weight and the contrast with her flesh, the arm is not going to be covered by anything. So this black and then this black of the shirt is instantly going to make this pop out.
Right. So that's a wise, perfectly sound decision.
So
so talk to me about this parallel pen. Why you like using it? What it gives you?
Yeah, I started using these felt-tipped calligraphy pens years ago because I liked the idea of one tool being able to deliver these different line weights of like something as thin as this and then something as thick as that, and then just with the twist of the nib of the, you're inking with a square piece of metal basically.
Right.
And so I like that idea, and then but the felt tip ones, they wear down so easily, you basically destroy them very quickly. And Ashley Wood actually turned me on to this brand, the Pilot Parallel pen, years ago, and I started experimenting around with it. And I love the idea of like one pen can just give you these different lines. You don't have to interrupt the drawing, and you can, like, instead of picking up all these different tools, I can just continually work and make it happen, you know?
Right, but I mean, like, everything you're describing is like, oh, a brush does that, but I'm guessing that with that awkward square metal tip, it doesn't allow you to make like controlled, and this is the wrong word, but I think the right idea, to make graceful lines.
Yeah.
And you like that, what that brings to the work is like the pen is giving you something. It's a clumsy tool, is that fair to say?
Yeah, like I like see how that line right there became a little shaky?
Yeah.
Like I like that.
Okay.
I like the unpredictable, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like I'm not going for a super tight, I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah, like you know how the 90s comics, man, like
slick.
It's so slick.
Yeah.
Every line has to be there and has to be perfect, and with this it almost creates an environment for unpredictableness.
Right. So part of the attraction of this pen for you is that it's a chaotic tool, and you want that. You don't want something that allows you to start getting too controlled.
Right. Because I want to have room for stuff like this where it's like, okay, I guess there's like a fringe now on her panties, like sure, why not? And you know, the unknowingness of what is going to happen while I'm working is sort of one of the exciting parts of making the work.
So you're very much into the idea that the art is the journey of making the piece, not the piece in the end. Sort of,
yeah. It's almost like a abstract expressionist idea where it's like the action of making it is what you just said is more interesting and exciting than making something that's for everyone or that is digestible
or something that's easy to like it's not pop. Like I think of pop music like that. Like it's like, oh yeah, everyone can kind of just enjoy this, but there's nothing to really sink your teeth into.
Right. Yeah, pop is like, it's easy to digest, but there's no soul.
There's no no soul. That's a good way of putting it.
At the end of the day, so it and like for the face, like I don't really know what's gonna happen, but I'm assuming like, okay, there should be an eyebrow right here, and then there can be an eye like right here, and then do we see her other?
It's like an old school Casio watch.
I got this in Japan.
I was just gonna ask, is that from Japan?
From a vending machine?
Of course.
So I am gonna, for like her little nose line, I'm not super confident about how small that's
Okay,
gonna be.
this is interesting. So you get into a zone where you need some control and you switch tool.
Yeah, just boom with a micron, and I'll probably I'm gonna go ahead and do the mouth that way too, and just assume like, give her a bit of a smile, and like, okay, that the mouth goes there,
right?
And instead of doing the other eye here, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and fudge like a bit of a shadow from her hair there, and just know that the viewer knows that there's an eye somewhere here.
Sure.
But stylistically, I don't really think I need that for this piece.
Do you find that part of your journey in creating is trying to discover what you don't need to put in that allows the viewer, the reader to become a participant? Like they almost like complete part of the drawings in viewing it?
Yeah, and I think that the more experienced comic book or illustration fan or art appreciator that is looking at art, their mind knows how to fill in the blanks of what is missing.
Again, going against the idea that this is pop music, this is something for someone with who wants a little more from their art experience.
Yeah, and because I like I hate the idea of having to hold the viewer's hand through all of this and over explaining things. So for me, I mean, I don't want to talk down to the audience or the viewer, so I rely on them sort of knowing the language of some of this stuff and being able to fill in the blanks.
Let me ask you, as far as where you're placing your thicks versus your thins, is there like any reasoning behind, like so in my work, I'm always trying to place the thicker lines where I feel a shadow might be, or are you just placing it in the right place for design purposes as opposed to lighting, or is it just what feels right?
It's what feels right.
Okay.
Because I know that my lighting sources on most of my pieces are probably not correct or based in reality, but I think I'm fudging it enough that it makes sense in the context of my style.
Sure.
So, like, for example, these are holes in the skull, right? The eyes are holes, so there seems to be light right here on both of them.
Right.
And then when you see them together lit like that, it registers as skull eye holes.
Sockets.
Yeah, that's the word. Thank you.
Yeah. It's my science degree coming into effect there.
This line penciled in will hit these hairlines, and I don't like that looking at it right now. So I can just kind of modify that and have that become something like this, and the pencils don't always have to be the literal guide.
Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you went off script, like when you were like, I'm going to ignore these pencils, your entire mark making and the way you pulled your line changed. It got a lot more energetic, and it seemed like there was a lot more excitement behind it. Is that, did you feel like that was the case, or did you feel like you got more anxious?
That's a good question.
Are you even aware that even happened?
I wasn't really aware that happened, so you bringing that up is interesting to me.
Yeah, but to me, like watching it, it was like, oh shit, what I just saw was like Jim like come to life.
Oh, okay.
That's what it looked like.
It might be a little bit of both of what you just suggested, like almost like a nervous excitement of like, oh shit, I'm going off script now. Like how do I not screw this up? Maybe it's by overcompensating and doing something even more stylish.
So throwing yourself into the deep water forces you to go even further into
your own creative world.
Yeah. And not relying on like almost like my logical mind,
right.
Yeah, this is where the like just instinctual part of mark making and drawing comes in for me, where like what I'm working on right now, this kind of I guess this is like a shadow thing, but I sort of don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm instinctually putting in a black shape to fill in the space and make something happen here. But I mean, this might have been a mistake to do this, but we'll see if I can pull it out of the fire.
How often do you find that?
I think I can.
Yeah, I think what I was leading to with my question was, how often do you find that when you go off script like you are now, and it just is an absolute failure? I'm guessing not very often.
I mean, sometimes it can come back to bite me in the ass, and I have to get the white out, or I have to.
But isn't that just part of the process? Like, adding, subtracting, adding. Like, you're not throwing the piece away.
No.
So it's you're still discovering the drawing. You just start to discover it in a subtractive instead of simply additive process.
Yeah, it's like leaving the mistakes in has become part of my style in a way, and then the painting over of that becomes part of what I'm doing, part of the aesthetic of what I'm doing.
So you're thinking along the lines as you're doing this of color, like that's a part of your thought process right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
For this piece, sure.
Right.
It's just going to be minimal spot coloring.
Right.
And it's going to be behind them to pop them out even more.
I didn't realize how much you truly just stayed with the parallel pen.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes introduce the Sumi brush pen for like, I could have done some of the black with this, but I guess since we're talking and stuff, I got distracted and I'm just sort of going with this for the majority.
So I'm the problem
of what we're doing. This is your being interviewed while I'm drawing is part of the problem. No, I'm joking. I'm gonna put paper over this because I'm gonna go in here and I don't want to smear.
Right. So is that parallel pen, the one you're using now, loaded with? It comes with an ink that is not waterproof, correct?
It's not waterproof.
But you have one where you load it with a waterproof ink of your own.
Yeah.
Is this one the waterproof ink?
Yeah.
Okay, so then why did you cover up that area? Is it still wet?
It's still slightly wet. Okay. I can feel it. My spidey sense is saying don't.
You do develop that.
Yeah.
You do kind of develop like an awareness of like what's wet
and just to be extra safe. Even though like smearing does become part of my style, it's like on this piece, just wasn't feeling it. Wasn't feeling the risk of And so I'm noticing that like these do not match up with these, and I'm kind of trying to
explain it.
So
the ends of the arrows don't match up with the tips?
Yeah.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
So I'm sort of thinking like, do I need to be so precious and spot on, or is it okay that they don't match up? And I'm gonna sort of solve that problem by just pushing this over just slightly like this and fudging it so that I think it's okay, and then this will become, I think this is sort of okay, and then let's just go like this, and will this, when all this pencil stuff is erased, is that okay on the eye? I think so.
I mean, it's your world.
Yeah.
You're God. So you tell me.
Somewhere behind this circle, this sort of curved or something, and
But do you find that because you're creating a world with your drawings where the rules of reality and the logic of things like perspective and all that are so malleable that the reader just accepts that those arrows are attached and it's normal.
I think so.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think that that's totally okay in the situation that I've set up here with the style and the approach to how I'm working, you know.
Yeah. So now is the skull and the female are done. Mm-hmm. What are you doing from here? Like, what's the plan from here?
From here, I will wait for this to totally dry. I will erase the pencil mark, and then I'm gonna go in with a little color and a little Zipatone, a little shading film.
Okay, so you're done with the black line, the black work, for the piece, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless, you know.
So what makes you choose? Like, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but where you rendered versus where you didn't. Like, the bones have no rendering on it. Her legs have no rendering on it. All the rendering seems to be right in here. Mm-hmm. And is that an intentional device to keep your eye in the to say, hey, this is the focus of this image?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think any detail on the bones down here, it's weird to have the eye go in here. The eye should be in here, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I could add like little chips on the bone with ink, but I feel like these bones in solid white, I'm going to do some white paint in here.
Okay.
That's going to be a nice graphic, just almost like symbol, shape.
Right.
Of just like, okay, we understand exactly what that is. I'll go in white in the skull as well, but I can get a little painterly with the white in here. But I like the idea of just these as graphic shapes.
And also they will never fight again. Again, contrast. You'll have the detail here, the graphic shape here, so they'll harmonize in a sense where you could read that in your periphery vision, but this is where you need to be looking. Now, one thing in my work that I have trouble letting go of is an area like this where it's just a line. And the reason I have trouble with that is I feel like the line, the reason I think it works for you is your line has so much character in it. Mm-hmm. And that makes it interesting to look at. It's hard for me to leave something simple because I don't know, or I'm learning how to make the one mark interesting enough to stand alone.
Yeah.
And is that something that took you a really long time to gain a confidence over?
It did, yeah, because your natural inclination would be, this has to have something going on in it. And I was thinking, should there be a shadow right here under her butt or under his chin a little bit? But then the idea of that to me is that's too much. Keep it as this abstract symbolic thing. Right. Because the white of this contrasting with her butt and her feet, I think is going to be a nice pop.
All right, let's...
And I'll show you something else, too, that I'm not going to pursue, probably, but just looking at this piece, of course, my lead is not coming out right now. Let me try a different pencil. Just looking at this piece and knowing what the color and zip...
You just broke out the black wing. We're in for some serious
shit. If I wanted to, there's an idea of I could do some sort of graphic black shape, something.
This is an idea you had, but you're not gonna do?
I just had it as I finished this. And I'm imagining this in color with zip, and you asked me, is that the end of your black line work? And I said yes. But at the same time, I'm also imagining after color and zip is done, if I wanted to keep a bit more, if I wanted to add more black and do another graphic element, this is a solid black shape, this is a solid black shape, could also become something that helps the overall piece pop. But that's something I can always add later.
Oh, so you're not adding that right now?
Nah,
that's a maybe?
It's a maybe.
All right, this is awesome. Just to be on the journey is...
Yeah. So when I'm working on a piece, I'm always asking myself these questions of, okay, I finished this part of the piece, right? I'm already thinking of color and shading film, but after that, should I make the piece full blown to the edges of the paper and have something here? Okay. Do I need, like, what is the overall look? Right,
you're continually creating the composition until it's done. Mm-hmm. So like when you did your little sketch, you weren't even necessarily thinking of a long portrait format.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking like, well, this is a cool image.
Right.
A girl and a skull and some bones, that's cool.
And then you throw it on a vertical image format, and then you start building your composition further as you go.
Yeah.
All right, that's ballsy.
So that's the improv and the playfulness that I like with just making imagery. Again, for like, it depends on the piece, but for comics, you can't really do this level of improv because the overall page, the overall piece has to work as a unit.
Right.
So,
when did you get into this idea of wanting to bring improv into your work? Because, I mean, earlier when we were at the coffee shop, we talked a little bit about that. That wasn't the case early on for you. Is that correct?
Not so much, but I've always been a sketchbook worker and primarily working directly in ink in a sketchbook, which is an unforgiving way to work. And so I think doing that after so many years, you start throwing things in and improving because it's your personal sketchbook. No one's going to see it, so who cares if you mess up?
Then after doing that for a while, you start to find appeal in that.
Yeah.
And you want to share that.
And it starts becoming part of my actual finished work that I put out into the world, you know.
So you don't need the pencils for that possible black shape.
Yeah, because
that was just to demonstrate an idea for the camera.
It was just an idea, and also I want to have like a clean slate here when I do the color and the gray tone.
Okay.
Like, because I want that to be the next.
When you say gray tone, are you talking about like Zipatone?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got like my shading film over here, and I already know like, oh, I'm gonna hit a couple areas with shading film.
Okay.
Which I can do now.
Alright, so we came from an era of the 80s of the black and white indie comic and manga and all that. So we grew up with this, seeing the Zipatone.
Yes.
It's sort of becoming a bit popular again. Is it just your roots that made you want to start bringing this into your work?
A bit of that, but I just also really enjoy having this a tone in this format of like just literally pasting it down like this. Mm-hmm. And building off of that. Like I kind of view my pieces as like building. Mm-hmm. So I know that her outfit is going to be in gray tone, and then my next decision is like, well, do I do her hair as gray tone, or is that going to be a color? Because I know this circle behind them is going to be color. Okay. So it's like a layering, building block kind of process. Right. You know.
Now, so the way you're using the Zipatone is you lay it down, you cut out the shape, and peel it off the film, and then apply it. So you're not using it. You're not trying to be completely precise with it.
Right. Like, it's okay that I have a little light, highlighty kind of area right there. Like, I like knowing that it can be off registration.
Right.
Or,
now, and then so after you apply it, you have to burnish it, and that's what you're doing right here.
Yeah, because
and that adheres it to the paper.
Yes, and it also makes the black underneath it become more prominent.
Right, right.
Because otherwise you get a filtered black.
Right. And in Japan, they do sell burnishing tools.
Oh, yeah,
as
yeah.
well. Now, am I correct that if someone wanted to have more, like, precision-based shapes, what I always have seen is people lay down the sheet of Zipatone over the area, carve out, like, right on the paper, and remove the excess.
Oh.
Instead of tracing it while it's on the film, peeling it off, then applying it.
Yeah, I've never done that technique before. I've never done
Is that something I'm way off in my imagining that? I always assumed that's how it was done.
I think whatever works best for you. For me, like, Zipatone is sometimes hard to come by and expensive. And so for me, it's like I'm literally just carving out the pieces that I need.
Right, and there's very little waste in the way you're doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, you see, like, this one sheet was probably used on like 2 or 3 different pieces.
Right.
You know, so.
And this is the stuff you got in Japan?
Yeah, I've got.
And it's still made by Chartpak? Is that Chartpak?
This is stuff that I bought from a friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
I cannot.
Because Maxon is Japan.
Yeah.
That's the whole buying brand.
This is some of the stuff. And Deleter.
Yeah, Deleter's another.
This brand.
Yeah. Oh, look at that pattern.
That crazy
That
shit.
is funky.
I got these in Japan. This one too, Deleter.
So talk to me about your Japan experience. You bought a lot of that.
Oh yeah, I bought like $300 worth of Zipatone in Japan.
How much Zipatone does $300 buy you?
They were like $7 or $8 a sheet.
Oh, okay.
So do the math.
Decent amount.
How much is that?
A lot.
Decent.
A lot.
Decent stack, man.
And did you get a bunch of pens and shit while you were over there too, like art supplies, or is it mainly the Zipatone?
What did I buy? I bought. I'm trying to think of what pens I bought. I think it was mostly the Zipatone, man, just because I was so excited to see it.
Right. And what about books? Did you buy a bunch of books?
Yes. And a bunch of them are over on that bookshelf over there.
All right, we'll do that.
And I can show you.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Some crazy manga that will blow your mind, basically.
I definitely want to see that. And what about toys? Did you buy toys when you were over there?
I didn't, because I just didn't have enough room for all this stuff, man. It was So this is what I like about it. It's like you can put it down and sort of move it around
until you burnish it
and figure out, like, right about, like, I like.
Oh, that's cool.
I like that. I like having a bit of the white, a bit of the excess.
Now, will you go paint like white highlights in those areas to make them pop even more, or you leave that as is?
I can. I mean, sometimes I do that, but sometimes just the color of the paper looks good too.
Now I'm sitting here realizing you've put down the Zipatone before the paint.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay, like, if like wet media hits that?
Yeah.
Okay.
For me, because part of my style is just to be sloppy.
Right, but I mean, it won't like make that peel up.
No.
Okay.
No. And you know, if you got wet on media on this, if you wiped it off immediately, it would come off.
Now, do you play with scratching away the Zipatone at all?
I have. I've had mixed results with that. It can be unpredictable.
Yeah.
So.
And do you mess with opaque media on top of the Zipatone?
I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should let you do your thing.
That works as well. I'm trying to figure out.
So again, you're just kind of riffing on what, as you're working on the piece, you're thinking like, hey, maybe I'll put this pattern on. Like, you didn't pick that specific dot value.
Yeah. And
It just felt right, like in terms of how dark it was and how big the dots were.
yeah. That size one is sort of like one of my go-tos.
Okay.
Instead of having to cut zip for these little frilly things, I figure, well, I could do Copic gray tone on some of that.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see you pull out a Copic.
So that's cool. I like that. Can also like do a slight, just a lipstick and a little
I see it.
eye shadow to pop her. I'm wondering like if this for hair
Like a darker.
will work. Like that might be cool, or that's kind of a cool one. I'll definitely need to use the light table for this.
So why the light box for this one? Because it's too dark to see through?
Yeah.
Without it? Okay.
Yeah, like some of these are mounted on a white backing, so it's like you are not going to be able to see through that.
Now this looks like an older American zip.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. These LED light boxes are game changers.
Yeah, man. The old one I have is still right there. The old school sort of fluorescent
Yeah, with the tube lights.
to tube light.
I saved mine. There's so many books drawn on that thing.
Look at that.
Yeah.
It just immediately like,
So
okay, we can see exactly what's going on here.
and they don't get hot, which is really nice. Those old light boxes got warm.
Oh yeah. And there's no burning out of the light.
Right, and it's bright as hell compared to the old light boxes.
So with like the specific shapes of her hair, the points, I can cut excess zip here, and then when I put it down, I can just trim this stuff off.
Okay, that's kind of like what I was saying earlier. Okay. Now,
What you're saying though is, to me, this is a bit wasteful. But sometimes people will just cut an entire shape like this and just
Right.
paste it on. And it's
Right.
like, dude, you just wasted. Like, you can peel that off and put it back on here.
No,
But
but
it-
I meant like for like here. Let me use my fingers here, sure. But like if you're doing the bottom of the pant, like you're just doing the panties, like lay the zip down like this on a light box and cut like generally around that. Put that down and trim the fat off.
Right.
That's a very precision-based means of doing it.
That is an option.
Have you ever cut through the zip paper into the drawing?
Yes.
Has that ever been problematic, or you kind of just roll with it?
It generally is not a problem. But if you're using super thin paper
Right.
and you actually cut through the paper,
Oh.
that
Have you done that?
no,
Okay.
because I'm always using either like almost like a 300. Is it pound? 300-pound paper?
300 is not the pound. You're talking about the series. The
Yeah.
pound is like Bristol board. I think is like a 80-pound. Generally, I think.
Right. Okay. So you see, I turned off
The light
the light tail because I actually just want to see what this looks like in
before you
real
burn
time,
it,
in
right.
real life, basically.
Before you burnish it.
And I like that.
Do you burnish it then trim, or do you trim then burnish?
You trim, then burnish.
Is it really hard to lift after you've burnished it?
Yes. So some of this excess I actually like. I'm gonna take just a little bit of this off because to get the shape down here of the hair. But I kind of like that excess.
Right.
Like I think it's okay to have that.
What is it you like about? I'm trying to think of the word when things aren't lining up perfectly and there's an imperfection to things. You seem to like when you see it, you like it and you embrace it.
Yeah, I think the off registrationness, it reminds me of like the zine days.
I was just gonna say like old posters,
and
like punk rock,
yeah,
zines.
Self-publishing and like DIY, which is what I came up in the 90s. And the idea of like imperfection is okay, you know. Actually, I'm gonna cut just that guy off, if it'll let me. See, I burnished it, and it's kind of
really hard to get off. Oh, dude, I didn't realize it was like that.
Let me see if I can perform a little surgery.
So if you can't get it off, are you gonna be okay leaving it there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not gonna. Oh, here we go.
It's also, we as artists tend to be looking at our pieces with such a micro lens, we forget that it's really something to be seen with a macro lens. And that one little off line doesn't ruin the piece, but in our heads we're like, it's ruined.
Right. I might just cut it out, actually, and it's not. It doesn't bother me that like, that's all good.
Oh, the paper was compromised?
Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, man, once you burnish and get it down, a lot of the zipatone
I didn't realize it was that.
Really seals itself.
It's pretty amazing how they developed this to be like, you can move it around on the paper and it doesn't really stick, but then once you burnish it, it's locked.
Yep.
That's a pretty cool system. So you just used a rapidograph.
Little touch up.
Why that over the micron? Because it's a finer tip?
Finer, but also a more permanent.
It matches the ink that's in the parallel pen?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Microns are great, but they're not the purest black.
Right, and I've found that out of the pigment pens, they are the blackest, but when it comes to that versus ink, there's no comparing.
Yeah. And when you're making corrections over whiteout, I think the rapidograph is the way to go. It's also
when you're working on top of the white?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think ink is always better than pigment pens over that white.
Again, little off registration, but I like the way that looks. And that is pretty much set.
I have a bit of an abstract question. So when you first were like getting like your childhood of loving comics and comic art and your early days of drawing, you were much more controlled. I'm guessing that the art you liked was more along those lines as well. And I'm guessing the music you liked was more punk rock, hip hop, metal at that time. And I'm guessing that as you grew and discovered funk and jazz, you started to really enjoy the improvisational technique of those music. And is that around the time it started creeping into your art too?
That's a good question.
It's abstract.
I never thought of it that way, but possibly. But I think it was more of a conscious decision just to loosen up in general. Okay. I mean, I had some hand and wrist issues back in the late 90s with my career of super tight inking and having it affect my body.
Hand and wrist issues?
Yeah.
What, like arthritis?
Just like carpal tunnel.
Oh, shit.
You know, in the late 90s when I was doing that super tight Clerks style.
Yeah.
Like I was, I'll show you a quick example of what my technique used to be back in the day. I'll just use this pen. But like I would pencil something and then I would ink on top of it. I would draw it, you know, this way. And then I would go back with the same pen and add the line weights this way, man, of panel after panel.
Yeah, this was the first INKPULP instruction video is this technique you're talking about right now.
Okay, but doing this just for a couple years, for me personally, being this tight, it started to have health repercussions on my hand.
So is that a scary adjustment to start letting go of being so controlled, or did it just feel good always?
It was a bit of an adjustment for sure. But going from this, where it's like all these lines, and just being like, just do it in one line, just get it right in one, like, just knock it out.
Yeah, I mean,
and get looser with it, where it's like, okay, there's shadow, there's line, this is his collar. It's like
that requires a leap of faith. It requires some confidence.
This is a much more fearless approach, but to me, this is so much more interesting than.
I agree, but is it safe to say you can't start here? You kind of need to start there to learn how line works.
Yes.
To learn all the ins and outs of like technique before you can let go of it, because you're training your instincts when you do this to the point where you can let go of that and your instincts are now cool.
You're right.
I'm guessing.
You're right. And it's the difference between like, you know, in instructional videos and stuff where you're constructing the shape with like you know, and it's like everything's a tube or a, you know,
it's 5 shapes. From what I'm trying to remember this from teaching. Everything is made from a rectangle, a cube, a rectangle, a cone, a cylinder, and a sphere.
I haven't drawn this way in so long that I don't even know how to do it. But so again, it's kind of like this comes with time and drawing, but again, for me, it just seems like way more easy to try and get it in just the first go around.
I mean, what happened? Tell me if I'm way off of this. My take on it is the mistakes are made with confidence and give the drawing character.
Yeah.
So they're not seen as mistakes; they're just seen as style.
Yes. But you're right. I mean, with this, it's like I filled up years worth of sketchbooks doing it this way and doing like, I remember all my side views, I would always do like the line that connects to the ear, and then the nose is something like this, and then I think there's an eye here, and then there's like a cheekbone is here. I used to do the circle for the nose, the mouth is something like this. But again, after years of that, to me, it's just sort of like, well, it's so much more fun and interesting just to, you know. And
I'm not there.
Guy has big hair. His ear is probably somewhere over here. There's a shadow under the ear. This connects, and he has like a cool collar. And then, star. This is the best drawing. He has fuck yes shaved into the side of his head, and you know. But the way I'm drawing here, I mean, literally, I filled up sketchbooks of drawings, just having fun doing these kind of drawings and realizing like, okay, I like this kind of mark making, I like this kind of problem solving.
So there is an analytical process. After the sketching is done, where you're kind of building up an arsenal of things that work, that allows you to pull from, like, you have like a toolbox where like I can work more I can work in an improv fashion now because I know I got these tools that'll make it work.
Yes.
But you have to discover those tools, and that's what the sketchbook does.
Yeah.
All right.
And then that becomes each artist's own individual journey of like, well, how? Maybe this doesn't apply to you at all.
Right.
That's the interesting thing I think about visual art making, just making images in itself is like, well, each person is going to approach this in their own way that makes them the most comfortable. So
I've always said as a teacher, like, I can show you what works for me, but ultimately it's hoping to help you find what works for you, which could be totally different. And that's kind of the goal of like the ink pulp instruction, is to get everyone talking about what works for them, So, like, someone can look at everyone's toolbox and maybe pick up a few things or help them discover their own.
Yep.
All right, cool. So we got some work here. I want to start with this pile here, Jim, because this is something that you do that I love seeing. It's like every bit of paper you have, you put to use somehow. So something like this is just you playing around?
Yeah, this is like either early morning warm-up drawing or maybe at the end of the day ending on a piece that is just like a fun
Like cool down?
thing. But yeah, it's like I'm always cutting up paper and cutting my commission paper and comic paper, and these are the scraps.
And like, what do you do with all these?
These little drawings are going to go out to people that ordered the Pop-Up Funk book. So I need to send these to Ross when I have enough of them. But,
now, was this like a Kickstarter tier? Like you get a free little sketch, or this is just felt like doing it?
We felt like doing it. I actually drew these, dude, during our ink pulp session with Mike Rome. So these all came from that session.
You did all of these during that podcast?
Not the little ones, but
Okay.
these size ones I did.
I remember this guy was on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these... I'm not sure if that was one. This
And
was
you're
one
just
of them.
playing, like, these are just you messing around.
This is just
There
straight
aren't
to
any
ink.
characters.
Yeah, like I don't, some of it I don't even know.
Gordy makes an appearance.
I don't know who these people are, but it's just pushing ink around.
Yeah, that's fun.
Um,
And then underneath all those jimmies.
this was my first attempt at the Batman commission.
So this is an abandoned piece.
Yes.
You haven't torn it up yet.
No. Well, I might just wind up finishing this on for my own.
Okay.
But this turned into this, which this is way stronger.
Yeah, that's dope.
This is more of a, like, I was, looking at a lot of Bisley, and this was more of a
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Batman as a grizzled, chiseled, muscle, dangerous guy. And then this was more like, no, this is what I want the piece to be.
So this is commission pile?
That piece. This was a attempt at a Spider-Man small commission.
Oh.
This is Girl Scouts sketches for the new comic series I'm working on. So just getting character guides for myself for the new...
What made you do preliminary work on that ruled paper? Is that so you can make notes next to it?
Yeah. This was just my travel spiral notebook, and then I wound up photocopying them so I could just have them taped on my drawing table.
Oh, okay.
Turtleneck Jones.
What is it, Jazz Bunny?
That's for the Girl Scouts cartoon.
Oh, that's not in the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is like one of the pieces for my Skull Funk Radio podcast.
Yeah, you do a lot of nice pieces for that podcast.
So I do these as perfect square because that's the format for the website, and then I'll sometimes do gray tone on these, but then these pieces I'm specifically digitally coloring the whole piece basically.
Okay.
That was a first attempt at the Apocalypse commission that I did.
Oh, cool.
Different pose, but the one I wound up doing much more dynamic.
Okay.
So, sometimes stuff like this, it just has to be abandoned. It just has to...
It's healthy.
This is a finished commission. This is like 70s Wonder Woman when she was in her all white outfit. And I figured since it's 70s, I can make it particularly psychedelic.
Sure.
And really have a lot of fun with shape and the shading film.
Right. And now this is from our podcast where we're inking others. So that was you inking Mateo, right?
Yeah. Here's that's what I worked with.
Right.
This is an abandoned Spidey commission. Again, so you saw 2 attempts now. I don't want to show these.
Yeah.
You saw 2 attempts now at the Spider-Man.
Right.
And I'll show you what the finished piece is.
And then what is this stuff? These shapes are awesome.
This was from the Comic-Con in North Carolina last year, Tommy's. This was the standee that I drew for the dance, where it was like the all-female cast of like Akira, Batman, This was just the left side of it, and then over here I did a bunch of stuff.
Okay. What do you have so much art, like piles and piles of art.
I have no life, Sean. This is all we've been in hiding. I don't know what else to do with myself. It's So this
is that just playing around then?
Yeah, this stuff is like I saw photos of these girls like either on Instagram or online, screenshot it and thought I want to draw that. That's an interesting pose.
I get that.
That's it's inspiring me to do something with it.
Yeah. Dude, this is where I think we can see your true like technical understanding of art, like in like inking like a Kevin Nolan piece. Like this, there's some real like traditional style inking happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really describing the form in a very volumetric sense.
Thanks. Huddleston saw this online and told me that this piece reminded him that I was an inker, and I learned how to traditionally ink.
That's what I'm saying.
And now I'm still able to ink other people, but add my own like gonzo flair on top of that.
Right.
But this was a challenging one for me because Kevin's stuff is so smooth.
Right.
And so for me, making some of this mark making, at the time when I was working on it, I was like, I might be completely missing the mark here. This might not.
Yeah, but you hit
be the way to go.
The
mark
making is just incredible.
Thank you.
It's just there's such a beauty to even like the fine line mark making there against the thicker line mark making there. These marks, these like jagged shapes you make, those are like signature yours.
Mm-hmm.
But I love them, like there's such character to them, and of course your contours are yours.
Thank you. This turned out to be actually really fun. This I actually wound up scanning and coloring and turning into a t-shirt design.
Yeah, that's super crazy.
Very strange, distorted anatomy happening here, but it was more like shapes.
Right.
I like that a lot, but I don't. Some of the stuff I'm making it and I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure.
And this is you making Magnolia.
Yeah, that was a video.
Awesome. But those skulls were not in the drawing, right?
Yeah, it was just Dead Man, so I added the wings, the moon, and the skulls.
Yeah, it's such a dope piece. Oh, and here's you inking John Hiroshima. Again, you can see your technical ink understanding traditional.
This was a fun one, and this was just the Hulk, and I obviously added the background stuff.
And that's another Magnolia.
Another Magnolia, and then I added the bat.
Right, so it was just Man-Bat.
And since we're on inking other people, I know that this is the sort of the big hit one that I did. The Miller Day, and this for me was this clicked immediately with me.
Yeah, I think for all of us this was a big one.
This one, when I posted it on Instagram, has probably got the biggest reaction of anything I've posted this year.
Oh, wow.
As far as number of likes and comments you should ink a project of Frank's. I'm like, sure, tell Frank to call me. How is that gonna happen? But sure. Oh, this is interesting. So this is one of my script pages from Girl Scouts.
So it's just dialogue.
Just the dialogue, and I'm just figuring out the panel arrangements.
Okay.
Now this is some crazy shit.
What is that?
I'm doing these.
Oh my God.
I'm doing these backup stories for the new Girl Scouts comic book series.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Gordy and his son.
Gordy has a son now?
Yeah, named Casper. They love to read comic books together. One of their favorite comics is called Macho Tailfin, about this shark hero. So I did this two-page story, mixed media, painted with, Zipatone and whatnot. Scanned it, looked back at it later, didn't really dig it. So I wound up tracing it and completely redrawing it. Scanning these and then doing full digital color.
Okay.
And I think the digital color with this cartoony style looks more in line with what I was originally going for.
Okay.
This is the second issue.
Dude, what are you doing here? Like
These-
this collage stuff.
These are patterns that I'm cutting out of old 70s Playboy magazines.
Oh, whoa.
And just glue sticking them onto the art.
Now, when you scan these in, it's still. Are you doing anything to these after they're scanned?
Yeah,
in?
these are fully digitally colored
Okay.
pages. So I'm doing the gray tone practically. I'm doing the white practically. I'm doing cut and paste with it. And then I'm scanning these in and adding like orange and blue. Real limited palette.
Right.
So there's those. Each section, each scene change of the New Girl Scouts comic is a slightly different look. This scene where this robot assassin guy is saving our hero Dio, I'm scanning these in and just adding flat gray digitally.
Okay.
So this scene looks exactly like an 80s comic book, man. An 80s black and white comic.
Okay.
There's some of that.
And that's a big influence on you, or the black and white comics of the 80s.
Yes.
So we're talking like Ninja Turtles, Cerebus,
Yeah. Like Flaming Carrot,
Concrete,
Dark Horse Presents,
DHP, right?
Love and Rockets, 8 Ball,
Right,
Hate,
right.
Evan Dorkin's body
Milk
of
and
work.
cheese, yeah, okay.
This section with the bad guys is black and white and gray with just touches of red. So our cloaked bad guy figure, she's literally the only red shape on these pages.
So every scene, there's a different technique coming in.
Yeah. So again, on this page, it's like this is red, and this is red,
So it's a narrative device.
and the rest of it is just.
Oh wow, look at that. That's awesome.
So this is really like me just
Oh
playing
my
and having
God.
fun. Like
Look at
these
that,
are
dude.
photos of my own eyeballs
What?
that I shot, scanned in Photoshop, turned to gray, and then printed out just ghetto style and cut and pasted them onto the board.
That's crazy.
But you can tell I'm having a lot of fun with this stuff.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that.
And then here's some of the more mixed media.
What is that?
This is our hero Turtleneck Jones actually has a living cyborg assassin inside of him. So this is
This is more Girl Scouts.
yeah. This is a
Okay.
scene where the cyborg assassin is coming out of Jones, just the skull part.
Oh.
And in this, I digitally added, I think, just like blue behind the main shape.
Okay.
And here's more of this page comes after that one. So you can see the arms and everything manifesting. It's coming out of Jones, and everyone is like,
wow.
what the fuck is going on?
What in the living fuck all is this?
And these panels are cool because it's like I just did a color background on each of these. So I think this one is like orange and then pink and then maybe red or blue, but it's just one color digitally, you know.
Okay. Hand lettering. What are you lettering with?
Just the Pilot Parallel.
Those letters are Pilot Parallel?
Yeah.
Oh my god, wow.
Yeah. These flashback pages are about Dio and her boyfriend are done black and white, but I'm scanning them in, and then Justin Stewart's helping me with this. We're putting all this line work on top of an old yellow lined notebook look to make it look like it's literally coming out of her journal. So you have like a slightly yellow weathered lined notebook.
You're pushing boundaries.
Yeah.
On every like aspect of your work right now.
Look at that.
That's you inking me.
Inking Sean Crystal.
Yeah, that's so dope.
This
That's
is
the cover.
This is the original cover for One Dangerous Donut. This is the original for the making of the pop-up book that's actually in the pop-up book. This is the variant cover I did for Umbrella Academy. These are some illustrations from the Sorcerer's book I did for Neotext.
Right.
This is background ingredients for the Hunter S. Thompson pop-up piece in the pop-up font book.
Right. Oh shit.
This was the Girl Scouts brownstone design for the animated series,
Oh my god, that's crazy.
which Mike Huddleston then took and made like 100 times better.
Yeah, you gotta show me
which
some of
which Mike will do.
that. Of course. And what the hell?
And then this is double page spread from Girl Scouts of Turtleneck Jones's demise.
Oh, awesome.
And that's all we got.
Prolific, Jim.
This is all just from last month.
the prolific food one.
And that's why I don't sleep, kids. So I'm not really gonna mix. I just poured out.
So which colors do we have in here?
Yellow, lemon yellow, and just orange gouaches.
And is there a reason for these colors?
I always like doing yellow in general as a base, just to kind of put down and carve out color.
Is there a reason is it just like I just like yellow? Is it that simple, or is there a reason?
I generally like yellow, and I think it's a very effective color for popping things, but also it still allows the black ink to really shine. Like if I was doing a dark blue here or even red,
right,
I feel like sometimes that can become a little aggressive or too.
So it's a lighter value color.
Yeah.
And so you're using an opaque acrylic gouache, but you're using it thin.
Yes. And I water it down so I can do stuff like this, or I can do like kind of a splattery. I like having a bit of it come off of what I'm doing,
right,
and just add just a bit of a flair to it.
So you just tap the brush with a lot of water.
Yeah. And it's like if I don't like that this yellow hit this black, I can kind of just dab that off.
Oh, yeah.
Go like so.
And this is where having waterproof ink helps.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't, you'd be smearing black and yellow together and creating mud.
Yes. And even I don't necessarily want mud in the actual. And then I can take some of this orange and kind of go, let's see what like this looks like if I blend a bit of that in here.
It's like a wet on wet.
Mm-hmm. There's a bit of a dirt in there. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I feel like, I'm doing this close to her figure like this, and it's kind of helping pop. And if I want to boom, kind of like that. It's just popping.
So like in here, the orange and the yellow there's a bleed effect.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see the edge of a stroke, whereas here you can, and you're not choosing that intently. That's just how it happens.
That's just how it happens.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
This is the part of it of what I do that I'm not sure what the rhyme or reason is of some of this stuff, but it's just this is the instinctual part of this. Feels like the next thing to do.
Right.
Like this feels it's serving a purpose. The popping part of it of it being behind them and adding some kinetic energy around them. Like I like that part of it. Knowing that white is going to be painted over some of this. Like I can sort of just dab some of this out because there's no reason to have bubbled paint necessarily. So
there is still a little. You're thinking there's a little bit of control still crept in.
Yeah.
All right.
And then this can dry.
Okay, so you're done with the yellow and the orange?
Yeah.
And so the only thing left for you now is white, and then it's done?
Well, that's the question. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see, because I think, maybe there needs to be a little very light painted wash in some of her to make some of her pop, some of the flesh pop, or I might add like a tattoo on her arm or something.
Well, what would you add that with a pen?
That would either be pen or even pencil.
Oh, okay.
Could be as a cool stylish thing.
If you did some wash work on her, what color would you think for that?
Like a kind of reddish.
So staying in the warms.
Yeah, warm for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a plan for cool color on here at all?
Not really. If I did, maybe I would incorporate it into either the arrows or part of the skull.
Okay.
But I think with her, I kind of like the idea of just it being just gray and the paper color.
Right.
It, like why rock the boat?
Okay.
Well, but this is where the step-by-step exploration comes in with my work, where it's like, okay, I want to see this dry, I want to see some white added, and then let's go from there.
Okay.
And see what happens.
All right, hella dope.
Let's try not to screw this up. Even though there really is no screwing up,
So now it's letting that dry. Now are you like, I need to let this dry for hours so it's totally dry, or I just need to let it dry till it's mainly dry?
I can go mainly dry, and what we can actually do too is I can cheat and just break out a hairdryer and literally hit this and it'll dry quicker.
But it's up to you. If you want to let it dry, we can pause and let it totally dry.
Which is what I sometimes do. Yeah.
So the paint is all dry. And what are we doing now?
We're back.
Whiteout.
Yeah, now I'm going to go in with a little bit of white and make some of these other elements pop. I usually just go big with it and hit big areas with traditional, just, whiteout.
What makes you choose whiteout versus like a white acrylic wash?
The whiteout is a pure, thicker, more dynamic white, I find.
Okay.
I've tried using pure white paint, like you suggested, and it just, for some reason, the whiteout just became sort of an easy go-to. It's also very, very easy to find whiteout. You can get it at any like drugstore, or you know what I mean. Like it's readily available.
Right.
I can kind of do shading kind of stuff with it, like this, if you want.
Oh yeah, wow, that was neat.
Create some cool little effects with it.
I like how you get your fingers in it too.
Yeah, it I don't know how toxic whiteout is, so you might not want to have this on your skin like all day, but
yeah, I'd imagine it's not good.
And then I can go in with the actual pen and get the real get the real nitty-gritty.
Do you go ahead.
This kind of stuff in these little detail areas? I find it's best just to kind of like push it in, just kind of get it in with your finger, and it creates that kind of cool effect, as opposed to being so precious and trying to hit every small little area.
Yeah.
It gets to the point where you can just kind of fudge it in. Like this area, I don't want to really lose any of this line work, but I can kind of...
You set it back.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Just kind of fudge it in there. Because, you know, part of the coolness of the texture of the drawing is just that black line work.
Right.
And so you don't want to lose everything you've put down.
So the skull is basically going to be white, and the bones too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm thinking there'll be a little bit of black spattering over that, a little shading.
Okay.
Just because the stark white might be a little too white.
Okay.
And you know, you don't have to hit like literally every single, like there's a bit of open paper right here, and it's okay. It's like your eye isn't.
Right. You're not trying to make it like poster flat.
Yeah. It's again the little randomness, the little imperfections are kind of part of the style I'm trying to convey with my work. So the comfort in that is knowing like not everything I have to do has to be so precious and so perfect, you know.
Right.
I'm counting on the viewer's eyes being able to fill in the dots on some of this stuff.
Right. What was art school like for you?
It was interesting. I mean, I did learn a lot, but I also got lucky in that I met Mike Huddleston and Nathan Fox there my first week of being there, and those guys kind of became really close friends, but also mentors to me.
Oh, really?
And we were all in the same boat of wanting to do our own thing, and especially with Mike. I mean, him and I eventually teamed up and became a penciler inker team.
Right.
Him penciling, me inking, and just being around that dude, he's got so much technical knowledge and technical chops that just by being his roommate and living in the same house as him, just like through osmosis, I just sort of improved, you know. And it's always good to have someone you can just go to directly as opposed to just chatting online and ask questions and figure out technique and all that.
Was he ahead of you in school? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was like, I think he was 2 years ahead.
And what about Nathan?
Nathan was in my class.
Okay.
So Nathan I met the first day I showed up because we were both living in the dorms. And he was like 2 doors down from me in the dorms. But Nathan was like the star of my class, and Mike was the star of his class.
Okay.
Like the two best guys. And it just so happened I got to become roommates with two of the best dudes in the whole school. Huge advantage for me.
Right.
You know.
Right.
I think there's something about being in the same physical space as someone that you're able to learn from.
Definitely.
Seeing their workspace, seeing their approach and their work ethic to what they're doing, it just has an immediate kind of effect on you.
Yeah, honestly, that's a big part of why I want this series to show the artist's studio and the artist's life. I think all that is really essential to learning yourself.
Yeah, it's everyone approaches things differently, and you can pick up little things. You don't have to copy or have to mimic someone's entire aesthetic or approach, but you can pick up little things
Right.
that you can add to your own, and that always helps. Boom, so there's that white.
All right, so what is it telling you it needs from here?
I feel like these arrows need to go white just to counterbalance.
Sure, I can see that. Okay.
With what I got going on. And again, I don't need to hit every little area in there. I can just kind of push the paint in. So we go like that. And kind of I can feel my hand dragging through this wet paint over here, so I might have to correct that.
Or are you going to leave it?
Or I could leave it. Again, like, I feel like I'm in a very safe zone at this point with this piece. Like, the piece is basically done. And so if I lifted up a little bit of paint, boom, I can just go back in there. It's not like anything that will destroy the outcome of what I'm doing. What I want to do next is add just a little bit of flavor on top of this.
What does that
mean? And I'm gonna show you what that means.
Okay,
I need to grab a couple.
Give me the sauce.
Need to grab a couple brushes, a couple toothbrushes. So we have black, red and white. And I think what needs to happen first shake this guy up a little. It's always good to have the test paper and just kind of see how much spritzing is going to come out.
Right.
And then I kind of like doing a little just like the redness of her knee. If I was painting this, you'd have a bit of red in the knee and maybe in the shoulder up here.
I was always taught that areas where the bone comes right to the surface of the skin is where you go red.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, you know, I really don't want her face to get hit by this, so I'm just gonna ghetto mask this with my hand. You can also do something like this real quick and just put paper, you know, to be safe. But I kind of like the idea of let's have a little bit of action happening around here. Let's get a little in on that arm.
So the energy of the mark itself, because it's being sprayed, is something to capture through this technique.
Yeah.
Instead of just like painting it red.
Yeah, and it's so subtle. Like the eye knows it's there, and it just spices things up from just being completely flat.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And I can even hit kind of just this area, like right over here. It can go over the bone, like that's okay. Just a little flavoring, just, you know.
A little seasoning. It's like the Zatarans of art.
Season that shit up.
And you're going to do the same with black?
Yeah, and I think just a small... Again, we're just sort of winging this. That's probably too much black.
Whoa.
But that being said, I can kind of, you know.
Oh, so you're doing that.
So a little. Let's just go to the top with it.
Right.
Let's you know, and to kind of counterbalance that, it's like we can get a little down here. I don't really want her butt to get hit with it, so. But boom, a little over here, a little spice happening over there. I'm pretty happy with that, and then maybe just a hint.
So you've really, I'm noticing like you have such a understanding of like how hard and how deep your flicks are with the brush. You're really controlling when you get an area of a little spray versus an area like over here, a big spray that really went in.
And you know, all this stuff, it's like super obvious, but just have a piece of test paper over here to the side, and like you can easily figure out like what is going to happen with your tools before you commit to putting it on your finished piece. You don't want to risk a fatal move at this point in the piece. The piece is done. So at this point, you don't want to be like dipping your toothbrush blindly in the ink and then going spritz, and then the whole thing goes to shit.
Right.
It's you know, it's pretty obvious what how to avoid some of this stuff. So I almost feel like we're basically done. I have white a little white spritzing that could go in, but I want to wait for that black to be completely dry.
Okay.
But as it stands, I would be almost happy basically walking away at this point with this piece. I mean, I'm going to sign it down here.
Right. I want to talk about the signature.
But
that's an important part of work.
Yeah. And for me, it's like on this one, I always approach it as, do I want the signature to be an actual shape, where I usually do a thing where I'll do like a circle, or do I just want it to be script? And for this one, it's my instinct is sort of telling me, let's do the circle one, and let's go like this. I put in my star, food, 1, copyright, 20, and then of course let's just do an extra skull down here just for good measure.
Explain to me the copyright thing. Is that more just like...
I think it looks cool.
Right, yeah, like graffiti shit.
Yo. I think it looks cool, but also just kind of letting the world know, like, I own this image.
Right.
In a way. But no, it is kind of a Basquiat, just symbol.
Right.
Symbols in the work. The crown, the skull, the copyright symbol.
Right.
There's certain things that you can do with your work that the sole reason of doing it is it just looks cool. Yeah. And I feel like that's the reason, that's the excuse.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, that's
cool.
That's what I was asking. Right. It's...
You know... But that's sort of, if I was going to do anything else on this, I would maybe go in with pencil and do a couple contour tattoo designs, maybe right here and maybe right here along her leg. But as it stands, I kind of like it just as a clean figure. I think tattoos on any character add a cool look or a design element, or almost like accessorizing, which that explains more about the character and their personality. But as it stands, I feel like this girl next to the skull looks pretty badass. Like, do we need to over explain that she has tattoos? And I don't know, I kind of like the cleanliness of what we have.
All right, cool.
So that's sort of it.
All right, awesome. So do you want to do the white, like let it dry and then do the white, or no?
Yeah. Actually, I can kind of speed that along just by kind of dabbing some of this black. But yeah, let me do... And this is just going to be... I already know this is just going to be a very subtle...
It's fun, interesting, I think, like how... Like... You have this sort of calling, like, I need something here. It's going to be very subtle. Without it, it just doesn't feel right. But with it, it feels right. But it's almost something that it's just subtle.
Yeah.
Like, there is an importance to having some subtlety in the work.
Yeah, it's like, is this white spritzing going to make or break the piece? No. But it's just something that I feel like, we're here, let's put it in.
Right.
I don't regret doing it.
But without it going there, I have a feeling it would just sort of like be calling to you, like, I need white, I need white, I need white. And that's just following the gut, like that inner voice of like instinct.
Yeah. Which again, like going back to my technique, a lot of it is just based around instinct, or well, this feels like the next move to make.
Right.
If I fall on my face, I guess I paint over it or I redo it. I don't know. It depends on how big of a fall I take, how big of a fuck up it is. But for me, it's like there's never something that you can't recover from.
Right.
Unless it's a huge disaster.
But do you even remember the last time that happened to you?
Not really. But what's interesting is now I've been doing these elaborate commissions. I've gotten into the commission game, and there's been several of the commissions where it takes me sometimes 2 or 3 tries to get the commission going. Oh. So I'll lay something out and I'll be working on it, and something will just not work out right. And sometimes I will just literally put a piece of paper on top of that commission on the light table, trace over what I've done, and say, now I know what to do next on this. But
so it's still part of the journey of getting to the final spot. It's not like it was a waste. It was like, this showed me where I need to go next.
yes.
Let me take what works and use it and go in that direction.
Yeah, it's the same step by step I just showed you with this. It's just sometimes another piece of paper has to be introduced, and I have to redraw what I've already drawn, but in redrawing it, I'm not tracing it. I'm kind of improving that first attempt anyway.
Right.
So,
what do you do with the drawings that are used in those stages that you kind of take from and then abandon?
I just wind up tearing them up, and it feels good to tear them up and to kind of exercise it out of my life, as like weird hippie as that sounds. It feels like
I tend to hold on to it, and like in a commission situation, just give it to the commissioner.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I just feel like it's all part of the process. Like,
yeah,
here's the finished piece, but these other pieces are all part of what made that.
Yes. Okay. I get a satisfaction, man, out of knowing the newest version is going to work out, and then taking the old version and just literally ripping it in pieces, being like, that's out of my life.
Like a
that's
cathartic
done.
thing.
That was just a building block to this.
Right.
Now this is the thing that exists that I want people to see in the world. That other thing is now irrelevant and gone from my life.
That's awesome.
And it's like exercise a dance.
Yeah, I get it. It's a ritual. It's a ritual.